Adam Briones. I'm CEO of California Community Builders, and we're really excited for this webinar today on the California Dream for All Shared Appreciation Mortgage Program. For anybody that's in the Bay Area right now, I think we're all kind of looking at some clouds and rain, but today we're really going to be focused on sunshine and California dreaming. And so I do want to share that for anyone that has followed CCB's work over the past few years, which may frankly just be my mom, California Dream actually has a really important place in our organizational history. I joined CCB back in 2021 as the second CEO. And one of our big wins my first year was being a part of a team that won an RFP put out by the State Treasurer's Office to help put forward a potential program plan for a potential new shared appreciation mortgage down payment assistance program, which became the California Dream for All program. And I would be remiss if I didn't shout out the great team that was a part of that research team, the great folks that were a part of that research team, which was California Forward, HRNA Advisors, and CSG Advisors. And for anyone that's interested in the report we wrote, which was published back in 2022, they can find that on our website, CC Builders, under the research section. But for anyone that is familiar with public policy and has worked in the realm of good ideas, we all know having good ideas is one thing, but turning them into reality is a whole other thing. And that's why we're so excited today to have some really amazing colleagues from CalHFA, as well as community leaders, all of whom are really driving forward this concept of the shared appreciation down payment assistance program that is the California Dream for All program. And we think it's really important today for this conversation because A, there's some exciting updates to the program, which our colleagues from CalHFA are going to share. But B, we think it's really important because one thing that we've seen throughout our work here at CCB is that it's very exciting to pass new laws. It's very exciting to put out new reports. But at the end of the day, if a new program isn't implemented well, if it doesn't work for the folks we want it to work for, all that hard work is for naught. And we just know that we're very lucky as a state to have the folks at CalHFA doing the work they do day in, day out on both the California Dream for All program, as well as their other down payment assistance programs, as well as all of the other work they do. And we're also very lucky as a state to have amazing community organizations focused on housing counseling and getting the word out to first-time homebuyers about how you leverage these programs. And so today, we've actually broken the webinar into two sections. First, we're going to hear from CalHFA on the California Dream for All program, what it looks like today, some of the changes that have been made, and how families and first-time homebuyers can be leveraging the program. And then second, we're going to hear from folks from the Ventura County Community Development Corporation, as well as Faith and Community Empowerment on their work around housing counseling and helping families to leverage this program. So without further ado, let me get to the folks that you're actually here to hear from. So first off, we have Ellen Martin, who is Director of Home Ownership at CalHFA, which is the California Housing Finance Agency. Ellen joined in 2021 and assumed her current role in 2023. She's responsible for overseeing CalHFA's home ownership programs, including the agency's flagship down payment assistance programs, as well as specialty offerings such as the California Dream for All Shared Appreciation Mortgage Program, which we'll be talking about today, and CalHFA's Accessory Dwelling Unit Grant Program. Prior to her tenure at CalHFA, Ellen was a principal with Economic and Planning Systems, Inc., a full-service urban economics consulting firm experienced in all financial aspects of the land use planning and real estate development process. And then we also have my new friend, Molly Ellis, who is a lender services manager at CalHFA. And Molly brings a wealth of knowledge to the position from her 32 years in mortgage finance and including 25 years at CalHFA, which is really amazing. As a housing finance officer for the single family division, she uses her passion for affordable financing to focus efforts on investing in diverse communities with financing programs that help more Californians have a place to call home. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Ellen, to give the presentation. I know Molly will come back for the Q&A. And then Savannah, if we could go ahead and bring up the PowerPoint, and I'll go ahead and leave the stage.
Well, thank you so much, Adam. We're so glad to be here and so excited to talk about Dream for All Phase 2. And just while we're waiting for the PowerPoint to get up, I just want to give a shout out to California Forward and California Community Builders and the entire consulting team that worked on the California Dream for All framework report. Really just an excellent seminal work product that provided an outstanding framework for this program, as well as the calibrations that we're making here. All right, so for I think the very few uninitiated out there, the California Dream for All program offers a revolving shared appreciation loan product that provides loans for down payment to qualified homebuyers. Upon the sale or transfer of a home, the homebuyer will repay that original down payment loan plus a share of the appreciation in the value of the home. So if we see a borrower who takes out a loan for 20% of the home purchase price, that borrower will then pay back the original loan amount plus 20% of any appreciation in the value of the home. And then those funds can be recycled to help the next home buyer at a commensurate level. If we could go to the next slide, please. So I'll talk a little bit about phase 1 outcomes. Most of my presentation today will really focus on calibrations that we are planning for phase 2. But to backtrack just a little bit, phase 1 of the Dream for All loan program was available to first-time homebuyers earning at or below CalHFA's income limits. We saw about 2,500 total reservations that occurred throughout the state in about 53 of the state's 58 counties, and our pull-through rate was very strong, far beyond our typical programs, which have a pull-through rate of about 70%. For Dream for All, we saw a much higher pull-through rate of 87%, meaning that 87% of folks who made a Dream for All reservation actually ultimately closed their loan and purchased a home with the help of the program. The average Dream for All loan amount was $113,000 with a corresponding average home sales price of $567,000. So that is well below the statewide average median home sales price that we saw at the time that we launched Dream for All, which I believe was about $838,000. So well over $800,000 at the time that we launched Dream for All Phase 1. And then we also estimate that about 68% of the Dream for All household population identify as belonging to a community of color. So I do just want to make a note here that we've previously reported numbers on primary borrowers and households, but this represents an updated estimate of the total household population associated with those Dream for All loans. I think as many will recall, the program was really vastly oversubscribed. We committed all available funds within about 11 days, which takes us to phase 2 of the program, which we'll talk about on the next slide. So for phase 2, we have about $255 million in funding available, which includes both the most recent budget allocation of $220 million and the fallout funds that we saw from phase 1. So based on the average loan amount that we saw from phase 1, we estimate that this funding will allow us to make an additional 2,000 or so Dream for All loans. Obviously, that's a preliminary estimate on this at this stage, and it will really depend upon the ultimate loan amounts that we see when we launch phase 2. So with consideration to what we saw in phase 1 with sort of the volume and velocity that we saw, and also giving consideration to statutory requirements associated with the phase 2 budget allocation, we are implementing 3 primary categories of program calibrations that I'll spend most of my time today talking about. So the first is a major change in the way that CalHFA delivers its loan programs that is fundamentally designed to slow the process down and give our borrowers more time to shop for a home. Secondly, we have narrowed the eligibility criteria with a particular eye towards serving our first generation and lower income borrowers. And then finally, we've implemented geographic set-asides to ensure that the funds are distributed equitably throughout the state. Next slide, please. So I'll dig in first on the proposed changes to the loan delivery system. We have established a pre-registration portal for the Dream for All loan program that will allow our borrowers to secure a Dream for All loan voucher before they enter into a contract to purchase a home. So this is a huge shift in the delivery system that CalHFA has historically had. Overall, our registration system is intended to increase that time that borrowers have to access the program. So we want to make sure that there is a set period of time during which folks can access the program. And we want to slow down the disbursements to help ensure that the program is serving not just buyers that are already on the cusp of purchasing a home, but also folks that are currently on the sidelines that we can bring into the home buying process through this program. We do expect that the program will still be oversubscribed, so we want to use this pre-registration process to help us manage that. And we want to sort of avoid the race to the counter that we saw last time. So our portal will be open for a specified period. Prospective borrowers will have until the portal closes to register and get their necessary application information in. And then after the portal closes, we will screen for eligibility and we will use a randomized selection process, kind of like a lottery, to select the borrowers that receive a Dream for All reservation voucher. We will also be establishing a wait list at that time. So as we see loans fall out as they go through the process, we will have a robust wait list of folks behind those initial voucher recipients. Selected borrowers will then have about 90 days to shop for a home and make their loan reservation in CalHFA's reservation system. Now, I want to disavow folks of any concern that this is 90 days to close on their loan. This is 90 days to shop for a home, enter into a purchase contract, and make your reservation in CalHFA's reservation system, just like you normally would for a CalHFA down payment assistance program. Borrowers then have an additional period of 60 to 180 days to close escrow and close their loans. The reservation portal will open up on April 3rd, and then it will close on April 29th at 5 p.m. So we do want folks to understand that when you come in to the reservation portal and you register, getting there first thing in the morning on April 3rd will not advantage you in any way, shape, or form. We do advise that you get in and get your application submitted by about April 22nd in case any of your application information doesn't come through. We want to make sure that we have time to contact you and say, hey, you uploaded a pre-approval letter, the scan didn't come through. So we'll give you the opportunity to upload those forms again. So we don't advise that folks wait until 4:58 p.m. on April 29th to hit that submit button, but you also don't have to rush in and get your application in first thing on April 3rd. Next slide. So I'll talk a little bit about the eligibility criteria, and I'll start with the first generation criteria. So first generation criteria that we've introduced for this round of the program are intended to help narrow program eligibility to those home buyers that have not had the benefit of intergenerational wealth creation associated with homeownership. So the statutory requirement or the budget trailer bill associated with the updated budget allocation required CalHFA to establish a definition for first generation home buyers and to target the funds to those home buyers. So we did receive significant stakeholder engagement and feedback regarding our definition of a first generation borrower. We started out with a much stricter definition, but with the feedback that we received from our engaged stakeholder community, we did ultimately introduce substantially more flexibility to make sure that borrowers who lost a home during the Great Financial Crisis or were otherwise not able to sustain long-term home ownership were not eliminated from eligibility. So this slide outlines our definition of a first-generation homebuyer. It's a borrower that has not themselves owned any home in the United States in the last 7 years, and that the borrower's parents do not presently or did not at the time of their death own a home in the United States, or the borrower grew up in foster care. So there's two avenues to fulfilling the parental circumstances. It has to do with the parent's homeownership status or the borrower's circumstances in terms of having spent any time in the foster care system. So we will be establishing the first generation eligibility via an attestation under penalty of perjury. And CalHFA will be auditing and verifying that attestation as part of our loan compliance process. For phase one of Dream for All, 49% of our primary borrowers identified as first generation homebuyers, and that was under a much, much stricter definition. So we are confident that we can still reach a deep market of qualified borrowers with this definition. Next slide, please. So there are 3 additional changes that are designed to continue to help us narrow eligibility and target the program to those lower income borrowers. The first is a reduction to the income limits. Our original income limits and our income limits for most of our programs are based on 150% AMI. We are reducing that to income limits that are based on 120% AMI. So that generally results in about a 20% reduction in the income limits for most counties. We have a few examples highlighted on this slide. Next, we are looking at a cap on the actual shared appreciation loan amount. So the shared appreciation loan amount will be capped at the lesser of 20% of the home sales price or $150,000. And then finally, we will impose a minimum combined loan to value ratio of 95%. So what that effectively means is that a borrower will only be able to bring 5% of their own cash to the deal, which will help us to target these funds to those borrowers that don't otherwise have the means to make a substantial down payment. Next slide, please. So finally, we will use the pre-registration system that we've established to help us manage geographic set-asides for the program. So the funding and vouchers will be awarded by 9 separate regions proportionate to the number of households currently in that region. So it's really important to note, and we'll probably emphasize this more as we get into a conversation about the program, but it's important to note that the set aside will be based on where the borrower currently lives. But they can use a lucky voucher recipient that receives a voucher can use that voucher to purchase a home in any county. However, they have to income qualify in that county. So you can currently live in San Francisco and attain a Dream for All voucher from the San Francisco pool, and you can go over to San Joaquin County and use that voucher. However, you have to meet the San Joaquin County income limits, which are substantially lower than that of San Francisco. So that's a really important thing to understand and keep in mind. Next slide, please. So this is just a slide that I like to include really as kind of an expectation and level setting exercise. It's really important to note that as we shift to geographic set-asides, which are intended to fulfill the statutory requirement that there be geographic parity, that is going to have an impact on the demographics of our CalHFA borrowers. So as I'm sure most folks know, most of our programs are concentrated in the Central Valley, in the Inland Empire, the capital regions, and Dream for All Phase 1 also saw a fair amount of overrepresentation in these regions. And that has a lot to do with housing price affordability and the inventory of homes that are affordable to our borrowers. So we often see our programs perform really well in the inland areas of California. As we look to concentrate more funds in the regions that are typically underrepresented, so here we're talking about the Central Coast, Los Angeles, Orange County, San Diego, we should anticipate that the composition of our borrower households is going to shift. So we expect that our borrower households will look much more like that of as the state as a whole, which is that column highlighted in blue on this chart. So this shows essentially the composition of households by race and ethnicity for each of the regions that we're looking at and for the statewide total. So last slide, please. So recognizing that this was really a quick and very high level overview, I know that there are probably folks out there that are looking for a more technical training on how the program works. So we really encourage you to view our on-demand training and other resources that we have available on our website at calhfa.ca.gov. This QR code will take you directly to that on-demand training, and we certainly hope that that will help answer any of your questions. But Molly and I are also available at this time to answer any questions you may have.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, thank you so much, Ellen. I know that both Molly and I are coming back on screen. And first off, I want to echo a comment from my good friend out there on the internet, Stephen Figueroa, who said this was a fantastic presentation. So thank you first for that. And we have actually gotten a couple questions of if we'll be able to share these slides after the presentation. Is that something that we can do? We do share the video recording, but also would love to share the slides if possible. And it looks like we're getting a few questions now, but perhaps we can just kick it off as a first fairly high level question to both of you before we dig into the audience questions, which is, what was the biggest surprise, from this launch of the California Dream program that you all saw last year? And maybe Ellen and Molly, you could both take a stab at that.
11 days. That was absolutely the biggest surprise. We were gratified to see the program have such an amazing reception, but we did not anticipate that the program would commit all its funds at the velocity that it did. Before that, our the speediest absorption of a program was our forgivable equity builder loan, which was a 10% forgivable loan. That program took, I think, over 8 months to fully absorb. So definitely the biggest surprise we saw was, the absolute velocity of funds. And I think that really speaks to the market that we're in currently. And how challenging it is for low and moderate income folks to get a foothold in this market. We heard any number of anecdotes from folks that had been out there trying to get into a home, dealing with multiple bids, and just could not get an offer accepted until they were able to come in with that 20% down payment. So that 20% down payment was just really transformative, I think, for many borrowers who had been struggling for a long, long time to get into this market. And so that was gratifying, but 11 days was biggest surprise for me.
Absolutely. And speaking of going faster than planned, I realize we're probably running a little long, and I want to make sure that we have plenty of time to answer questions, especially with an technical expert like Molly on the Zoom here. So Molly, I see that you've already answered a few. If it's okay, I'd love to read one just to make sure that the folks on YouTube get this in the recording. So we got a question: does client residency status play an impact, for example, DACA or I-10 borrowers?
Yeah, great question. And actually, thank you, because I'd love to elaborate. I was trying to be very to the point when I typed my answer, but the official answer is CalHFA doesn't have an overlay regarding citizenship on our programs. So specific to Dream for All, you would follow Fannie guidelines when it comes to that. But what I didn't type in my answer was I happen to know that DACA is absolutely one of the eligible categories that Fannie does allow. I-10 gets a little bit more complicated. There are pathways for an I-10 borrower. Frankly, it's a little bit of a narrow path, but it can be done. But again, this isn't a CalHFA guideline. It would be the Fannie guideline that we would adopt, because we don't have an overlay.
Got it. That's very helpful. And then I see someone else asked, let's see, would someone whose parents own a BMR, low income, affordability restricted home not qualify as a first generation homeowner?
Correct. They would not be eligible.
Got it. And again, that's per your regulations and statute
The
in terms
first
of
gen rule. Yeah.
Yep. And then let's see, I believe this may have been answered, but when someone receives a voucher, how long do they have to find a home?
90 days.
90 days. Great.
Well, with some flexibilities.
But
So,
generally speaking,
yeah,
90 days
90
is
days.
probably the number they should have.
Yes. Yes.
And then it looks like we have another question. If I'm a co-signer for a mobile home that is not permanently attached, do I still qualify?
Yes. If it's a mobile home, sorry, the cosigner part started to throw me. The mobile home not permanently attached, as long as you can document that, we would still consider you a first-time home buyer.
And I saw a nod there from Ellen too, so we'll consider that a cosign as well. And then it looks like we have another follow-up question on ITIN. So can the question being, where can we find the narrow pathway with ITIN?
The Fannie Mae guideline.
Fannie Mae guidelines.
Yep.
Awesome. And I know that we will have plenty more questions, and we are, for folks that are in the audience, going to have another Q&A session at the end. But we do want to make sure that we get to our community leaders who have also agreed to spend some time with us today. So what I think we're going to do is thank you again, Ellen and Molly. I know you're coming back later during this webinar. Savannah, I would love to invite Kaylee up to the stage and on camera. And really quickly, I'd love to read her bio. So Kaylee, thank you so much for joining us today. Really quickly, Kaylee Victoria is the Director of Program Development and Administration with the Ventura County Community Development Corporation and brings over 14 years of experience in the nonprofit sector with a focus on housing counseling. At VCCDC, Kaylee oversees various aspects of operations and currently oversees the planning of VCCDC's signature virtual homeownership conference, which has provided thousands of hopeful homebuyer and homeowners across Central and Southern California the best guidance and practical tools to help them achieve their dream of owning or staying in their home. Kaylee, thanks again for joining us today. Maybe to kick it off, could you tell us a little bit about your work and the work of your organization, and maybe specifically about the type of housing counseling services that you offer your community? Oh, and you're on mute there, Kaylee.
You think I would get that by now? Thank you so much, Adam. So yes, I'm Kaylee Victoria with Ventura County Community Development Corporation, VCCDC. We do serve the areas of Ventura County, Santa Barbara County, Kern County, and parts of LA. And we are a nonprofit organization. We're also a community development financial institution, or CDFI, and also a housing counseling agency approved by the Department of Housing and Urban Development, otherwise known as HUD. And we do have a mission of empowering low and moderate income families and individuals by providing comprehensive services that focus on homeownership and financial education. So our client base is composed of about 77% minority, low and moderate income households who are first-time home buyers. And we offer these vital resources, and we aim to support to make homeownership possible for low and moderate income families by providing one-on-one counseling, so financial coaching for those who want to purchase a home. We offer group education, home buyer education, and post-purchase education, and also mortgage services for first-time home buyers and down payment assistance for low and moderate income families. So I'm going to toot our own horn because, you know, nonprofits sometimes are really bad at that. But we're a really small and mighty team, and I'm really proud of what we've been able to do since our inception in 2001. We've been able to assist more than 23,000 individuals through our financial coaching services, and we've been able to provide over $209 million in first and second mortgages for first-time home buyers, and over $12 million in down payment assistance for low and moderate income families.
Thank you for that, Kaylee. And if I can just go ahead and co-sign that as well. VCCDC does amazing work, and we felt really privileged as a part of our work with the California Dream Report to get your perspective on down payment assistance programs and to learn more about what you all do. So one question I'm really interested in knowing is, what are some of the particular challenges you all face when it comes to serving families in the Central Coast, especially around home ownership counseling and down payment assistance programs?
Sure. So, you know, as many other places in California, and as Ellen stated in her presentation, home pricing is the biggest barrier, but coupled with higher interest rates, with inflation, with stagnant wages, with limited inventory, it just makes it even more difficult for low and moderate income families to purchase. So that's one of the biggest obstacles. And In Ventura County, the median home price is $899,000 and the median income is $102,000. So you can clearly see that the housing affordability continues to be a barrier. And one of the things that through our counseling program that we have seen is that because of higher expenses to meet the most basic needs like food, transportation, shelter, people are resorting to using credit cards again for supplemental income. And then they're only making minimum payments and then increasing their debt burden. And we're also seeing that the use of things like food share pantries to relieve the stress on grocery bills is occurring a lot more. So these trends really highlight the pressing need to be able to support people in navigating financial hardships. And we do that through our counseling and education services. But I would say, one of the most daunting challenges would be the emotional toll that it takes on clients when they see the disparity between prices and their personal income. And it's something really difficult to deal with, but we have really passionate professionals on staff that, they're HUD certified, but they also deeply care about each of their clients. And they provide this guidance that's really needed when people feel discouraged. They really do need that motivation. And that's what we provide through the education and counseling services. And then on the first round, just to talk specifically about the California Dream for All, the first round, we did have a challenge with the e-home, with meeting the demand for the e-home and the counseling that was required for the program. We got a huge influx of people wanting counseling because a lot of people don't know that the e-home course requires 2 steps. One is the actual education and the second piece is the counseling. So there was a lot of people that were frustrated, a lot of lenders that were frustrated at that second step. So we really feel that if we highlight the fact that there's HUD-approved counseling agencies in our communities that can provide that live homeownership education, we can relieve some of that huge bottleneck that was caused during the first round.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Kaylee. And I really appreciate you highlighting one aspect that we don't actually talk about all that much, which is the emotional aspect of this. You have folks that are really pinning their hopes and dreams to these programs, and they're really, pinning their hopes and dreams to the housing counselor that they work with. And I'll go ahead and say, knowing you folks well, they're very lucky to have VCCDC working with them, and the community is very lucky to have you. Before we shift over to Haypen, last question. Are there any aspects of the California Dream or other down payment assistance programs that you work with that you think are working pretty well and that you like and you want to kind of lift up as an example of when things are going right?
Yes. I'm sorry, was that question for me? I don't know if you.
Yeah, that was for you, Kaylee.
Sorry. So just like I mentioned, the challenge about people not being able to save because there's just the basic needs need to be met. Giving someone the funds to be able to give a 20% down payment is huge. The cost savings that are tied to that, like a lower monthly mortgage payment, you eliminate mortgage insurance. Now they're able to take that and it causes a ripple effect. So now they're able to build wealth. They are able to become more resilient against unexpected expenses. And now they can positively impact generations to come because they're homeowners now. So that's a huge impact, I would say. And, it reminds me of stories that we hear about how homeownership is more than just a home. Just last week, we heard a story from one of our newer home buyers who is also now a board member. And she talked about her son, having a conversation with her son and talking about how now he's confident about being a home buyer when it's his turn to buy and it's no longer a dream. He knows that he can make it happen because he saw his mom and his dad purchase. So it's just this major impact that it's not just walls. It's really giving people hope. So I think it's a tremendous help that the CalHFA is providing Californians, and we get to see it here day in and day out when someone that never thought would be able to have the keys to their home to now hold the keys, and just that happiness and that confidence that now their kids feel, it's amazing.
Thanks for sharing that, Kaylee.
Mhm.
That was wonderful. Next, Savannah, if we can bring Haypin up, and I know Kaylee is going to come back later in the webinar. And before we get started on our questions, I'd like to just quickly introduce my longtime and good friend, Haypin Im. Haypin Im is the president and founder of Faith and Community Empowerment, a national nonprofit involved in empowering churches and nonprofits to leverage their resources by building capacity, leadership, and partnerships in economic development, and serving as a bridge between the Korean and Asian American community and the greater community at large. Since its inception in 2001, FACE has had over 200 partners, ranging from the White House to Fortune 500 companies, successful initiatives including educating over 7,000 homebuyers, partnering with both the FDIC and Freddie Mac in developing a Korean curriculum in financial literacy and homeownership, and hosting a joint conference with the White House and HUD to mobilize 4,000 Korean American churches for economic development. So welcome, Haypin. Thank you so much for spending time with us. And I just want to say that one of the things that I really admire about your work, besides the amazing direct service that you do, is also that you're very involved in the policy level. I know that you are someone that has a lot of contact with very large financial institutions, has done a lot of work about thinking about our national financial services sector. So really excited to have you here today. And maybe very similar to Kaylee, as a starting question, if you could tell us a little bit about FACE's work and who you serve in terms of housing counseling.
Great. And thank you for reading my bio. I think it's a little bit old. So first of all, our organization has been around for 23 years as of March 1st. And we have actually helped educate over 16,000 individuals to be on their way to homeownership. And I know that Molly from CalHFA has joined us for the last few fairs. And most recently, we had over 1,200 folks attend our recent fair last year. But our organization really started out because my parents being in ministry, they ended up becoming unpaid social workers, helping people with housing, jobs, etc. And but as immigrants, they had very limited access. And I saw a model at the First AME Church where churches, when they partner with the broader community, could do so much more. And as such, we took that model, and since then we have had over 1,000 partners, right? As mentioned, from White House to Fortune 500, and bring this resource not just to the Korean and Asian American community, but especially last year we partnered with the LA County Employee Associations that represent the African American and Asian American. This year we've added the Hispanic community. And so we are really serving a broad spectrum of individuals on home ownership. We do a lot of other work, as mentioned, in terms of advocacy. So I'm part of a lot of local and national and statewide advocacy groups to bring to a lot of the policymakers, decision makers, what's happening on the ground and where the gap is. And so I know that there will be some follow-up questions for which I would like to share some of that gap as well. But again, whether it's home ownership, home buyer education classes, down payment assistance, foreclosure prevention, financial literacy, workforce development, capacity building, especially for faith organizations, youth paid internships, as well, and even electric cars and energy, we are touching a lot of space and making impact in helping people really connect with opportunities and resources that all communities, right, can really fully reach their God-given potential of then being able to contribute and be welcome as well.
That's amazing. And again, I truly believe, the communities you serve are so lucky to have FACE doing the work that you do and just sort of being there day in, day out. And so maybe, similar to Kaylee, challenges and opportunities that you see related to down payment assistance with a particular eye towards California Dream.
That sounds good. So again, with the clients that we see, as people have mentioned over and over again, there is the high prices and then limited stock of affordable homes. And for California, there is a significant communities of color who have really been left out of the history of wealth building. And so we don't have rich uncles, we don't have rich parents, to be able to really get in. And so in that way, this California Dream for All, as well as some of the other down payment programs. And also, there has been this recent trend for many of the banks, because of the post-George Floyd, there is this new attention on equity. And so a lot of initiatives called special purpose credit programs are rolling out, and their down payment assistance programs are a lot more generous. Some programs is like no minimum credit score, no down payment, no closing costs, no mortgage insurance. And some of the income limits have actually increased. So I think in that way, in LA County, if people are qualified, we could potentially help individuals up to $200,000 in down payment assistance. And so I feel very grateful that we could be that rich uncle or the parent to come along and be that connector to help many individuals become homeowners. But there is a gap. And I also do want to say that in terms of some of the challenges beyond just affordability, there are many self-employed individuals. And, being strategic and smart, they want to minimize their tax liability. And so when we look at their tax return, I just saw a gentleman that was making $130,000 gross, but then his net income on his tax return was $98. I couldn't believe it. I was going, But the point was that when we're doing counseling, they don't realize that when you're self-employed, your taxable net income, not your gross income, is what banks will count for how much of a loan that they will be allowed to get. And so then the two options they have is to amend their tax return, right, and pay a lot of taxes, or just kind of wait for like the next year or two, right? And so again, both options seem very painful for them when realistically they can pay the mortgage. And so even something like that, I think could be, really, really great. I also see that in terms of there's a gap, and that's why this Dream for All is really, really exciting, in that a lot of times the down payment assistance program looks only at 80% area median income, right? But they're not taking into consideration that the area that people live in, especially California and LA County, maybe Bay Area, the average home price is so significantly high that, the people who have, it's kind of like you could afford, maybe you could qualify for the down payment, but then with that income, you're not going to qualify without a significant down payment, right? To buy a home that is somewhat even attainable. So again, that gap is something that I see. And so again, this is really exciting. That this program is being introduced again, and I hope that it will continue, that it will have another life as well. Another factor that I also see is student loans. We're working particularly with a lot of county employees from what I've seen, and their burden for their student loan is really, really significant.
Mhm.
And so I think, again, could there be some programs that are much more, recognizing, that yes, they have student loans, but it was an investment. And just like with doctor loans, maybe other student loans could be somehow, set aside so that they could qualify for the down payment program. And then, and loans. And the other piece is that I do want to say, as an organization that is intentional in including all communities, but especially the API community who continues to be left out because of the whole model minority myth. There's 50 groups, 100 languages under the AAPI umbrella. And so when you aggregate, it really, hides the suffering of many groups. And what people don't know is that, like, nationally, Korean and Black homeownership rate is the same. And there are 7 other API subgroups below the Black and Korean homeownership rate, and there's 12 below the Hispanic homeownership rate. And so it will be really, again, I would love to see policies in place to ensure that the API community is named, highlighted, presented, because we're not on stage, we're not on the talking points, we're not on the PowerPoints. And it translates into exclusion in a lot of the policies and looking into how it could be done as well. So those are just some of the challenges that we have seen. And I could go on, but I know we have a limited time, so I want to pass the mic back on. Yeah.
Thank you, Hapen. And all those things I think are amazingly important to highlight. And then obviously, I think you've been a real leader in talking about that issue. As Californians, we do need to be much more thoughtful about the way that we often lump together the AAPI community in a way that doesn't reflect reality. So thank you for that. And I know we could talk a lot longer about that. But next up, since I know we are approaching the end of this webinar, Savannah, if you could go ahead and bring back up Ellen, Molly, and Kaylee. All right. So now that we have the team back on, we're all back here together. And I think first off just want to say thank you, everybody. We've had some wonderful presentations. We've had some wonderful information shared. Molly, I see you on that Q&A chat box. You are on fire. I see you sharing that wisdom. So, as we get towards wrapping up, I just wanted to ask a couple quick questions, and then depending on the number of Q&As that we get in the Q&A box, perhaps we can answer some of those live as well. But maybe for Molly, actually, I am curious. This is the California Dream for All is a down payment assistance program. It is dependent on the private market and, traditional private sector mortgage lenders to put that first mortgage out, to partner with the borrower for the first mortgage. How is the lending community reacting to this shared appreciation type of product? And, what's your perspective? Anything you wish would be different, or, anything like that?
Well, considering in general the market's a little slow right now, I think the reaction has been overwhelmingly, almost too much so, to be honest, positive. It's created some buzz in the market that I think was we needed. So that all is like a really good thing, and it's attracting homeownership, like in general, whether they end up doing a CalHFA loan or not, whether they end up doing Dream for All or not, whether they go to a local community type program or a big bank type program. There are down payment assistance programs available out there, and that is one of the things that many people don't realize. So whether it's Dream for All or not, I think the buzz around the whole thing is sparking interest in homeownership, which is amazing.
Yeah,
I'm a little
absolutely.
biased, but it's very good.
Absolutely, more work, but very good. And actually, I want to go back to Kaylee and Hapen. Shared question for both of you. You sort of heard from Ellen's presentation and what Molly has shared, what the California Dream for All program is going to look like in this next phase. As you think about the future, as you sort of dream about, how this program could evolve, what would you hope for future iterations from the program in terms of, supporting and targeting the communities that you work with? And, Kaylee, Hapen, feel free to chime in on that.
Sure, go ahead, Hapen.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I think one of the things that I like to ask as a housing counseling agency, again, last year we had 1,200 people. We have already 400 people registered for a fair that's like 2 weeks away, right? So I feel like the housing counseling agency is a great partner for CalHFA, and it would be great if there were some kind of initial orientation training, something like that would include more housing counseling agencies if you have already done so, right? So that we could send out the word. The other part is that when I am looking, I know that you're asking future, but I also want to talk about current. When I look at the lender portal that's there, I know like one of the leading banks that I just talked to, like literally this morning, if they're listed, but their actually internal system has not gotten them approved. And so that might cause some confusion, and I could have a side conversation who it is. But so again, I think having housing counselors trained and much more of an intentional partnership would help our home buyers navigate more clearly as well. And as I mentioned, that whole idea of the the self-employment folks, right? If there was some way, something kind of like I saw, like for you have some kind of exception for or intentionality for foster care individuals, so something around that, and love to brainstorm together. But in a future iteration, I think that would be also awesome as well, and for the student loans.
Oh, I'll go ahead. So for us, I think presently the program doesn't take into account family size when considering income. So someone that is a one-person household, and for example, for Ventura County, making 195,000 is lumped into the same category as a family of 5, making the same amount. So I think adjusting for income size, yes.
But just so you know, all those numbers are based on the household of 8, just so you know.
So it would only go down.
Yeah, it would only, if we adjusted for household size, it would go down. We took the 8 number and then did them. So we did try to be as generous as possible.
Got it. And then the other thing is just around the home buyer education. We hope that it and counseling, we hope that it continues to be part of the process, just because it's important, but also to elevate our role in the mortgage process and to let people know that we're here and that we're important in the role and what we do. I think that's really important as well. And then just what I had said earlier about eHome, just highlighting that, eHome is a 2-step process. When you work with HUD-approved counseling agency and you do a live workshop, you just have to attend the workshop. You don't have to do the additional step of counseling. And we do believe that, having people there live, whether it be, for example, for us in person or the live workshop, it's really beneficial because people get to ask questions. They get to interact with other members of the community. So we would really like to see CalHFA highlight HUD agencies as a resource for the education.
Absolutely. And yeah, we do. And yes, that's always an option to be able to do the in-person. And in many cases, just like you said, Kylie, it's a better option. So, and sometimes it's more affordable. So, yeah, for sure. Totally agree.
So I have a closing question for Ellen, but Molly, I want to put you back on the spot, and you've answered a couple of these already, but I want to make sure we kind of get it for the folks that are going to be looking at the recording. And one of the questions was, does CalHFA allow affordable units with resale restrictions? And I want to make sure I highlight that one because for our colleagues in the community land trust and other affordable housing owners, want to make sure that they have a good understanding of this program. So would you mind just repeating your answer on that one?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure. So I kind of said it both ways to be sure I wasn't misunderstanding the question. But if it's multiple units, no, we don't have the ability to do that. But if you're talking about a subdivision with resale restrictions, as long as it meets Fannie Home Ready general underwriting guidelines, then yes, we can totally do it.
All right. And then another one, just to do a little bit of webinar host privilege. A big focus of California community builders is multifamily home ownership, in particular condos and townhomes. And then we got a question in the chat, which you answered. Are there property restrictions such as single family only, or are condominiums and townhomes qualifiable? And could you share that answer?
Condos and townhomes are absolutely eligible.
We love to see it. We love to see it. And then let's see, I think you have mostly gotten it, but got one other question from my good friend, Steve out in the Inland Empire. And I think you might be in the process of answering it. But the question was, our organization's biggest problem is getting real estate professionals and home buyers to believe these programs exist. Is there any additional literature out there that folks can go to and read up on?
Certainly, and rest assured, Stephen, we're trying to get the word out. Thank you to the wonderful people on this panel that are helping us assist with that. We've done webinars for our lender partners, our realtor and realtist partners, our housing counseling agencies. We've done specialized webinars. We're out in the community. The Havens event, we're there, that she mentioned, we'll be there next week too. So we're out in the community and trying to get the word out, but the best resource is CalHFA's website. I'll throw the link in the chat as I'm answering the question, but it was on the QR code that was on the end of Ellen's presentation as well. Our marketing department did a phenomenal job on the resource page. So calhfa.ca.gov click on homeowners where it has the DFA banner, the Dream for All banner at the top. And then there's a little resources tab there. There's videos, there's flyers, there's a social media toolkit for those of you who would like to try to get the word out a little bit more on social media specifically. And then please don't hesitate to reach out if you need anything. My contact information is on the training and outreach page of the CalHFA's website. My direct line is there. My email address is there. Please don't hesitate to reach out if you need anything. I can definitely help direct, and half of my job is dispelling rumors. So if you need help with that, please let me know. Happy to help.
And Molly, what is CalHFA's website?
CalHFA.ca.gov. I did say it very fast, sorry.
No, no.
www.calhfa.ca.gov.
And
Awesome.
Stephen, I think Molly alluded to this, but we are more than happy to be out there side by side with you, helping to educate those real estate partners. And I'll put in another plug for the technical training. We did 3 separate technical trainings. We did one for our lenders, one for our real estate partners, and one for our housing counseling agencies. And then we essentially merged that into that recorded technical training for folks who weren't able to attend the live webinar. So would really encourage folks who have questions about how this program works for their business to go ahead and watch that technical training.
Awesome.
see
And
also-
go ahead. Go ahead, Hapen.
I see on the website that there is like different languages. So that's great. I'm just wondering in terms of like the outreach materials, if they are also translated into different languages,
Yes.
as well as having a list of ethnic media to also on your distribution list to make sure that they're getting your communication.
Yes, absolutely. And the application portal will also be offered in 6 different languages.
Great.
Awesome. Awesome. So I think we're getting to be at time. So Ellen, I'm hoping you can take us home with one last question. This is hard work and this is a big task, and that there's a lot ahead of all you folks that are working day in, day out to make the California Dream and other down payment assistance programs work. On a positive note, what are you excited about? What is one thing about this next iteration of the program that you're excited about and looking forward to when it comes to the California Dream?
I would say there's 2 things. The first is that we have an unparalleled and unprecedented opportunity to offer a down payment assistance program that can really and truly bring folks in off the sidelines. And we can serve folks that have not heretofore thought that they could get into California's very challenging housing market. And so I'm really excited about that. I'm also excited about the first generation criteria and having the ability to evaluate really for the first time at scale. So this is, an incredibly progressive criteria that has not been done elsewhere in the nation at this scale. And I think this will really help us as a housing ecosystem to take a look at that first generation criteria, to look at this program and say, did this help us to serve folks who have not benefited from intergenerational wealth associated with home ownership? And then that can help to inform conversations that we have on a going forward basis. So those are the 2 things that I'm really excited about.
And I think that is a lovely place for us to stop. Really quickly, Molly, we got the CalHFA website. Kaylee, for folks that want more info on VCCDC, where should they go?
Sure. Our website is vccdc.org. And
That makes sense.
yeah, nice and
Awesome.
easy.
And Hapen, for FACE, where should folks go to get more information?
So they could go to our website, FACELA.org.
Love it. And so I think we can go ahead and wrap by quoting what I believe is one of the last questions. Mr. Doug Ranger said, "Thank you for the excellent presentation. I love all the resources that are available in CalHFA." So thank you again, everybody. Thank you for the amazing work that you do. And thanks everybody on the internet for joining this webinar today. Have a great one, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody.